So air pollution में if you were to like classical kind of as a professional to break down the problem statement.
Yeah.
कि yes pollution है, but what are the sources through which this pollution is happening in Delhi? And at a macro level, what's the strategy that the government of Delhi has?
Right.
Something could be short term, something could be long term, but overall breaking down the air pollution problem statement.
True.
We'll start with that and then we'll deep dive also.
Absolutely. So I think पहले कुछ ground truths define कर लेते हैं, because sometimes people jump into either blaming or off the cuff solutions without realizing कि ground truths क्या है. दिल्ली का number one ground truth है, and this is substantiated by multiple studies by organizations like CEW है, TERI है. These are some of the renowned think tanks in the environment space. Delhi, the local sources of pollution, जो दिल्ली में pollution पैदा करते हैं, that contributes only 30% to Delhi's pollution. 70% is coming from the regional sources of pollution.
Okay.
That is a very important thing to understand. Similarly, if you take one city like a Noida or a Gurgaon, वहाँ पे भी वही सच्चाई होगी कि उसका जो inherent contribution है वो 30-40% होगा, बाकी सारा बाहर से आ रहा है. And therefore, it tells you that to solve a problem like air pollution, no one city can fight it alone. It must be a regional approach. It must be probably a pan-North India approach. Okay, that's true. And I'll come to it when we talk about the solution. But ये कहना बहुत important है.
And just to understand that a little better, Jasmine, so जो 60-70% बाहर से है, वो भी, it's not that all of it is agriculture. There are multiple things.
Multiple sources. I'll come to the breakup of. So now, forget this 30-70, right? As I said, कि दिल्ली के elected government के अंदर the levers that you have of change is just 30%.
Got it.
Okay. Well, you can still, I'm sure over time you can do many things, but if you want that step change from 100 to 20%, then you will need to have a regional strategy, right? And that's when the government of India, other states need to come together. The second thing you asked, the second thing I must tell you, first of all, is also the fact that pollution in Delhi typically peaked at 2012, 13, 14. This government, the Aam Aadmi Party government, came to power in 2015, as we all know. And in the last 8 years, data bears this out. The good news is that there has been an approximate 30% reduction in the average annual pollution. You measure it by average AQI or the particulate matter PM 2.5. So that's a good news that, many people, absolutely, there is no downplaying the importance of working on air pollution because it matters to everyone.
Yeah. But there is progress happening. That's
one thing that needs to be underscored, and I'll come to why and what has happened really. But I think anybody who's hearing this should not just be optimistic about living in Delhi, but optimistic about the potential of public policy. That yes, you are grappling with tough problems. There are many times, as I said, pollution is a classic problem where if you do not have coordination at a pan-India level, you're not going to address it beyond a certain point. Can a chief minister of one state do something? Certainly they can. But these two ground truths I want to lay, that overall there has been some a key shift that has happened, and I don't think any other city in India, it's not come to my notice, that has seen this kind of a 1/3 pollution reduce ho gaya hai Delhi mein. Now you asked, how is the government looking at it? And I think that's where we need to start looking at the sources of pollution. Delhi's pollution broadly comprises of 4 components, I would say. First is transport. Okay, vehicular transport, vehicular pollution is roughly, and there is a summer profile of pollution, there is a winter profile of pollution. I'm talking about, if you average mota agar dekhe, to 25% of pollution, particulate matter, comes from the transport, the vehicular traffic. Another 25% comes from industry. Now this is important to know because Delhi ko people don't associate with industry. But this is going back to that 30-70. Yes, there are close to around 1,700 units of industrial units in Delhi. But there's a lot in NCR. Because once Delhi tightened its noose around polluting industries, the easiest thing they found to do is, chalo theek hai, 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer Sarat ke bahar chale jate hain. Obviously it does, and this is where the dilemma of the half-baked policy making ke yahi challenges hote hain, that you optimize at a very narrow level. You don't really solve the problem, but you've shifted the problem to somebody else's. So pollution, this thing is
25%.
25%. Another 25% is roughly around construction and road dust. Now, this is obviously very pertinent. This is Delhi के अंदर काफी होता है, NCR में
Construction भी बहुत
massive construction हो रहा है, and there are many norms as to how you can control construction dust, but they are violated, and until you have a very strong regulatory oversight, you cannot fix it. Road dust is huge because the sheer amount, volume of roads, and as whenever the vehicles ply, it suspends the dust particles. And the fourth is typically the biomass burning agriculture, or you see in winters, even people are burning small fires here and there. So ये miscellaneous sources हैं. Obviously, at the time of crop stubble burning, it takes up. So this is, I'm talking about the average.
annual average, but इसमें उस time
Obviously, stubble burning में वो 50% cross कर जाता है. So at that time, that becomes the most significant.
But at the same time, it's important to recognize कि that's not the only problem. क्योंकि the general narrative can become कि अब stubble के कारण ही सब कुछ हो रहा है. ऐसा भी नहीं है. That time, yes, it is a significant source, but overall, you're saying it's 1/4 roughly of vehicular. Industrial. Then you have your road and construction, and then you have the miscellaneous, including the biomass
and the agriculture stubble burning and stuff. And therefore, one of the reasons why pollution has been a bane for many Indian cities today, if you look at pollution levels in Bombay, Pune, Calcutta, maybe even higher than what Delhi has. And this has been going up because there are so many sources that you need to control. Well, Delhi invested first and foremost in a very good measurement strategy. It was unfortunate that back in 2013-14, Delhi had only one air quality monitoring station. And today we have highest in the country, around 40 continuous air quality monitoring stations. You can actually monitor from various parts of Delhi and see the profile. So part of it is
classical
data.
Development sector thing, right? What gets measured gets done. Measurement.
Absolutely. What gets measured, at least there is a political will then available. I mean, you need to have the political will to act on it. But actually, it's a function of it. If you don't want to see the problem, you'll not even measure it. अच्छा है, बवाल भी नहीं खड़ा होगा, कोई पूछेगा भी नहीं. And that is, and the reality is, in fact, if you look at some of the international rankings of most polluted cities, you'll find Kanpur, Lucknow, some of these cities as the topmost, but वहाँ पे कभी इतना बवाल नहीं होता because hardly monitoring real time होता नहीं है. साल के end में by the time everybody is moved on. So anyways, for Delhi, we have always recognized that unfortunately environment has not become a big political issue in the country, and I say it unfortunately because if politicians care about something, you can fix it, right? And so in that sense, I think your viewers should know that it's good for issues to be politically relevant because that's when the time, energy, resources flow into it.
I fully with you on that.
So Delhi mein, obviously, this is where some of the most powerful people in the country live here. The media is very active here. And as a government, we are very conscious that this is one of the biggest issues.
So what's the macro strategy? And then you've kind of,
macro strategy,
sources are this, you're doing the measurement now, just at a high level, and then we'll deep dive. But
see, at a high level, there are 8 to 10 different initiatives that the government has been. So initially, I'll tell you, until 2016-17, the first 2-3 years was more about the government was itself trying to understand what are the various levers that were available to us. And before we realized the winter of 2015 and 16, you may have read this, Delhi becomes a gas chamber. Those were the headlines that were passed. So definitely the government, I think, was more in a reactionary mode initially, and therefore emergency measures like odd even took birth at that point in time. A few measures did initiate at that time, but I think it was finally around 2017-18 when the government realized that no, we will have to take some short-term immediate measures, but we'll need to have a longer-term plan to change the profile of these pollution sources in Delhi. Some of the short-term measures, as I said, odd even was one. One other thing that government of Delhi did was that we shut down our thermal power plants. Okay, so one of the, as part of the industrial pollution, when I said, it's not just the industries, but your power plants, majority of power in India is non-renewable, right? We know that it's coal.
I think it's still roughly 2/3, roughly.
2/3, I think it is like that. The renewable share is increasing, but right now also it's quite substantial. But Delhi had 2 thermal power plants within the borders of Delhi. And we shut both of them down, one in 2016 and the other of 2018. Today, Delhi is one of the few states which has no thermal power plants operating within its borders. But there are still around 12 thermal power plants that operate in and around Delhi in the larger NCR region. And there is work going on in talking to those governments. And at least making sure that they are not as polluting. There are technologies available to reduce the pollution profile.
So that was the other short-term thing, or even thermal plant.
Or even thermal power plant. But and then see, the most immediate thing that is available to any government is enforcement. You crack down upon construction norms, road dust. So Delhi started tightening all these norms. Earlier, itne well-defined nahi the. And I would say today, the kind of penalties that people pay, or the rigor with which the norms and guidelines are defined is far more rigorous in Delhi than anywhere else. In 2018, February was a landmark as far as Delhi was concerned. And I think that was almost after a year of planning that Delhi government announced a green budget. The entire theme of the budget of Delhi government that year was, how do we put in a long-term plan to reduce air pollution in Delhi? Because by that time we realized that ad hoc cheezein jitni bhi karni thi humne kar li. Ad hoc in the sense the temporary relief measures,
to get
low-hanging fruits. The low-hanging fruits are not ad hoc, because cracking down on the temporary sources of pollution, thermal power plants, ye sare band ho gaye the. 2018 is when we came up with the green budget of Delhi.
What were the main components?
And that's what sort of, if you look at, therefore, what did the Delhi government do? And I think it's important if we go in the breakup that we said, right? So first was vehicular transport, right? We realized that obviously Delhi has very high number of private vehicles that are registered. And therefore, to reduce the share of vehicular pollution in Delhi, you need to both reduce the adoption of private vehicles, which means you should strengthen the public transport of Delhi. And second is to make sure that the entire transport sector moves to electric.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about it. But I'm just laying it out that within transport, there's a twin-pronged strategy. A, promote public transport, within which the free rides to women comes, within which increasing the bus capacity of Delhi today is the highest it has ever been, around 7,400 buses. It was around 5,400 back in 2015. Increasing the Delhi metro network within Delhi by 78% in the last 8 years. Many people associate that Delhi metro to ban gayi thi Sheila Jagti ji ke time pe. Obviously, it started in her term. But in the last 8 years, the network of Delhi metro has expanded by around 80%. So that continuous investment and expansion is going on. The second is industrial pollution. Now, this is very important because yahan pe, as I said, Delhi has around 1,600 industrial units. Majority of them were using polluting fuels. It could be coal, it could be pet coke. These are actually very dirty fuels. You will see that chimneys would be, putting out black, carbon black smoke. And Delhi was the first state in India to have a very stringent standards defined of what fuels are permitted and not, much before NGT and others started acting upon it. And ye 2016-17 mein this order came out, after which there was a period given to shift all for all the industries to shift from polluting fuels to piped natural gas, PNG or CNG.
Got it.
And Delhi government even incentivized industries to move to these things. So by 2021, by the way, 100% of Delhi's industries have now moved to PNG. So all the dirty fuels that were used in industries have all come to a nil.
Got it.
Another big factor I told you about power plants, but this is very interesting, that one of the sources of pollution is diesel generators, DG sets. And why does that happen? Because we do not have, as a country, we've never had 24/7 electricity in large parts of the country. Neither in industrial areas, neither in residential areas. Yeah. Even in 2014-15, since I think you live in Delhi you've been living for a long time, these red color Yamaha sets were very known. You go to Lajpat Nagar market, you go to any market, all shops will have this phat awaaz aata tha. So in 2015 also, power cuts in Delhi summers were a known feature, which means everybody would have an inverter or a DG sets. Over the last 8 years, one thing that Delhi has achieved, it took not more than 3 to 4 years, is really strengthen the distribution system. And today, I think Delhi is not, I don't think, this is data to prove that Delhi has today 24/7 electricity in terms of, and this is best than any other state in the country, which means, and we get this figures from the market, that the sales of inverters and DG sets have almost reduced to a zero, which means there's no pollution due to diesel. Now, the moment you step, so that's been a very big feature which doesn't get acknowledged in all these, that, DG sets generate, because diesel generates a lot of pollution.
So on the first bucket, we were saying essentially shift people to public transport, getting the EV kind of policy, and we'll talk about that. Then the second, you're saying, ये 1600 जो भी industry थी, उनको you kind of gave a timeline, you gave a guideline that you shift to CNG, and then kind of 24/7 power, ensuring that there's no kind of diesel through generators. That's the second one. Third वाले में
vehicle pollution, I'll say one more thing. That one big intervention, this is where I'll credit the central government, because central government has this project of peripheral expressway. There's an so earlier what used to happen is that all the commercial traffic and trucks and lorries, and I think when we talk about vehicular pollution, we'll talk about also it's important to understand the breakup of even within vehicular pollution. But trucks account for around 30% of all vehicular pollution in Delhi.
So both the expressways, the peripheral expressways that make sure that they don't come
don't come to Delhi. Because earlier you look Delhi mein aate the, even if a truck is going from Bombay to Haryana or Punjab, then it would pass through Delhi. And now this peripheral expressway completely skip Delhi and you pass around it. So both of them were opened around 2018 and 2020 or something, though expressways, and that has definitely helped in drastically reducing pollution. So these are broadly.
And तीसरा bucket जो अपना था construction and
construction and road dust. As I said, that the beginning and the tightening of norms had begun then itself. On the road dust part, there are two things that the government is doing in a very, very big way. One is to increase the green cover of Delhi, and that is data to sort of, if you have more afforestation, if you have a more denser vegetation, then the suspended dust doesn't remain for as long. So Delhi government is investing every year into massive tree plantation exercises. This year, for example, our target is planting around 50 lakh saplings in Delhi. We have tightened norms for cutting of trees. Today, Delhi has the most, I would say, rigorous tree transplantation policy. आज दिल्ली में आप पेड़ काट नहीं सकते हो.
हटाना तो और कहीं लगाना है.
हाँ, आपको एक तो लगाना होगा, ट्रांसप्लांट करना होगा as per a scientific process. Second, आपको ट्रांसप्लांट करने के बाद भी क्योंकि उस पेड़ को काटा है आपने एक हिसाब से, यू आर ट्रांसप्लांटिंग इट फाइन, यू विल हैव टू प्लांट 10 trees as compensation to touching one. No sit again as this kind of a rigorous. So लोग तो रोते हैं obviously, but it is important and we've even strengthened these. जैसे transplantation पहले mandatory नहीं था, पहले ये था कि एक की जगह पे आपको 5 लगाने हैं, हमने एक की जगह पे 10 कर दिया और transplantation भी कर दिया. So there have been these series of measures. It's not been just, as I said,
it's not a magic wand, right? That's the other thing to here understand कि ऐसा कुछ जादू नहीं है कि वो एक साल में you can kind of really control pollution. It's as you're saying, these 5, 6, 7 different things that are happening in parallel and hopefully should kind of get the results.
So and that is why I see that over the 5, 7 years, I said there has been a reduction. But before we move on from pollution, I must say that one thing which we really lack today at this stage, and I think as a country we need to understand the issue and therefore our response needs to be, होता क्या है कि जब भी winter आता है, obviously around Diwali and around the stubble burning, every focus is only on stubble burning and this thing. Our average levels of pollution in India across the year are pretty pathetic. Let's accept it that out of the 30 most polluted cities in the world, 21 are India. Delhi इकलौती नहीं है. Delhi is number 8 in that. There are 5, 7 more Indian cities at the top of this list. And as I said, if Delhi's are in our domain, what is there is only that 30% sources of pollution. What about the rest? And that is why for the longest time we've been saying that there must be an empowered team of the Prime Minister and the Chief Ministers of the state. First, we should accept the fact that air pollution is a national threat. Is this worthwhile the time of all the chief ministers and prime minister? Definitely yes. I think we will not disagree, but I don't think this reality has struck yet, because we've never seen that kind of a coordination at the central government level to say that nahi, ye regional issue hai. And therefore, the onus is not always on Delhi. As I said, if Delhi cracks down on its industries, they'll move out. Similarly, if we are providing 24/7 electricity, just go 10 or 30 kilometers in Haryana, there are 6 to 8 hour power cuts. Even today in this summer in Haryana, 6 to 8 hour power cuts. You will be surprised how many dozens of societies in Gurgaon and Noida, fancy societies, are operating on DG sets.
Yeah, they put their own DG sets and yeah.
So, ये कहाँ की चतुराई है कि आप दिल्ली के नाम पे, obviously everybody wants pollution, but even people of Gurgaon and Noida deserve good air, and therefore there has to be almost like a common minimum program. That is something that there has to be a mandatory regional action plan for air pollution. Until and it's very interesting because cities like Shanghai, Beijing and Mexico City, these are two prime examples of large mega cities that have managed to really reduce their pollution. And all has happened because of a regional action plan, which Delhi doesn't have.
And all of these problems which don't look at state borders, right? There are many such problems. Pollution is one of them.
Pollution is a classic example.
Country, I think that's one space that we've not done well in, right? Which is coordinated effort across states to solve for something which doesn't look at boundaries.